It's time. I welcome to all of you who are joining us. My name is Tammy Verhelst. I'm with Seeking Integrity Los Angeles Treatment Program. I work with Dr. Rob Weiss and Dr. David Fawcett, both of whom are on this platform. They have, Dr. Rob has the Sex, Love, and Addiction meeting on Friday night, and Dr. David has the chemsex meeting on Tuesday night. And so our treatment program is for men with sex addiction, intimacy disorders, or co-occurring sex addiction and chemical dependency. And then we have lots of resources for partners in a pro-dependent way. Dr. Rob will be presenting on that in an upcoming Super Saturday Recovery Summit. But we've partnered with In the Rooms, and we're so grateful for their platform and their support and working collaboratively, that's hard to say on a Saturday morning, with them to have this space, to create this opportunity to bring presenters that you would not normally see to you. So we're going to start with Dr. Louise Stanger, and she's going to talk about families. Can't live with them, can't live without them. And if you would like to follow along, the Families 2020 presentation is in the blue bar at the top. I love on her website, she says she focuses on strength-based solutions and invitational change. And that really resonated with me. She's going to tell you more about herself, but the invitational change, I think with recovery, we're all invited into change, and some of us choose to do that. And I think for those of you here, you've accepted the invitation, and then some people don't, and that's always sad. So but I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Louise. She's going to tell you more about herself. It's also on the slides on Family 2020, and I'm going to toggle off my sound so that it's Dr. Louise.
Hi, welcome. What an honor to be here, and thank you so much, Rob, and Seeking Integrity and Super Saturday Recovery Summit to welcome me. It's such an honor to be with all of you today. I know some of us are double winners, triple winners, and everything, but I guess if we were in the rooms right now, how many people are really with you? Well, if you sit on your shoulders, you kind of figure out that there's generations. There's your parents, there's your grandparents, and there's maybe your children and your great-grandparents. So, family, oh God, can't live with them. And sometimes you just can't live without them. And yet, that is the area of my expertise. Some people call me the family whisperer. A little bit about me. I'm a clinician, I'm a social worker, I was a professor for many years, both at San Diego State University School of Social Work, the director of alcohol and other drug services at the University of San Diego, NIH, NIAAA research holder. I'm a trainer, I love to do trainings for treatment centers, and I love working with families, helping them move a loved one to change. Also an author. I have almost 3 books out. The first book is a memoir, because when you get to be my age, you get to write a memoir, and it's called Falling Up. And the second is a textbook, which is on intervention, which the University of Wisconsin is going to be offering as a continuing education course come fall. And it'll be done in perpetuity. But most of all, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a female, I'm a grandmother, I'm an adventurer, and I am one hell of a resilient survivor, because I grew up in a family beset with mental health, substance misuse, substance use disorders, suicide, depression, anxiety, some very talented folks, but also some very, very harmful kinds of things. And, I just invite you today in this crazy COVID-19 world where we get to meet by Zoom, about how are you contemplating the great mysteries of life? Because that's really what we're going to be doing. And are you contemplating life and how you choose to live life? And certainly if you're in recovery, you're choosing to live it well, you're choosing to live it with integrity, and you're choosing to live it with an authenticity. But sometimes how we view life and death, they are all inextricably tied together. And researchers say that when you lose something you value, and all of us have lost something, whether it's when we were poor, our value stands, our ability to be transparent, whatever. But when we lose something and we regain it, we value it more. And so that's why I value so much of recovery. I often work with families, and for families, I invite them to discover or rediscover joy. What's that? I don't even know that word, most of them say. Curiosity. I think we all should be curious about one another. We all need to be willing to listen to our stories because everybody has a story to share. And when we listen and we hear, we can really help someone else rise to their best possible self. Looking for clarity. Is that really what you mean? Do I really hear you correctly? Listening with understanding, and most of all, being grateful. I don't know how many of you in this audience did a grateful list this morning, and how many of you write down 3 grateful lists in the evening. I can assure you, because it's research-based, and Edmonds is probably the famous psychology of happiness researcher that says if you will keep a grateful list, and I'm so grateful today to be with all of you, and you write down 3 things every morning and every night, it actually changes your brain waves. And we know that addiction is a disease of a brain disease and attachment disorder. So we're always trying to rewire our brains. I just thought it was fun. I added, if you downloaded the slides, a little slide on Piglet and Pooh, and Piglet noticed that even though he had a very small heart, he could hold a large amount of gratitude. And I try and do that. And, and I love, so how many of you brought your listening skills? How many of you are actually listening right now? Or, in this Zoom world, it's really, really easy. I can't see you. You can't see me. So I can certainly be multitasking. Oh, I need to answer this right now. I need to go ahead and do that. But I really want to invite you to listen with your whole body. A long time ago, I want to tell you a story. I was getting an award, and when you get my age, you get awards. I don't know whether that means anything much or not, but there was an iconic Jewish author, and his name was Philip Roth. And he wrote a book called Portner's Complaint. And in there, the protagonist says, "How are you?" And the protagonist contemplates, do you really care how I am? Do you really want to hear my heart? And at the same time that morning, I came across the head of Duke University's Islamic Studies. And he said, how is your hayel? How is your heart? And what I want you to ask yourself is, when you ask someone, how are they? You stop and you listen with your heart, because you really care about what the speaker is saying. That when you listen, your brain is switched to listening to them. Like, I really wish I could see all of you so I could see your hearts today. And with our ears, we're listening, and our eyes are looking at one another, not turned away, and that our face is looking direct. Obviously, there's cultural considerations when you do this, but that your hands are still, and that you turn and you listen. And if you ever want to do a practice, I always do with families, we practice listening, we practice talking, because we need to be still, and we need to ask you, how is your heart today? Because so often when we grow up in families, we learn to finish each other's sentences. We also talk in we's, so we don't get to hear. And then I just wonder, are you really ready to change? Change is not that easy, and those of you that are walking the path of recovery know that change is not that hard. Well, there is famous researchers, their names are Prochaska and De Clemente, and they came up with stages of change. They're from the University of Rhode Island, and I got to actually work with them. I was so blessed on one of the grants I had, which was a parent-based intervention to reduce high-risk problematic drinking. But what they say is, when change takes place, sometimes, and a lot of times, we're just really pre-contemplative. Like, have you ever tried to change something? Has your family ever tried to change something? Well, it's not even an awareness. And then, families, they come up with, you know what, Johnny, Sally, they're acting kind of strange. And gee, they don't come home. They stay out all night. And I'm not too sure, but I think there was money missing from my wallet. But they really don't see anything. They're still too wrapped up in a cashmere blanket of denial. But they're contemplating. And in preparation, you know what? We've got to do something about this. I've got to help my loved one. Or you in recovery, you say, you know what? I can't do this anymore. And that little window of preparation or when I'm ready to take action is so little. Yesterday I had the most distressing phone call. It was from someone who owned some store and wanted me to help their worker. And he relapsed. He was relapsing on meth. And he called me, and in one moment he said, I'm ready to take action. And I referred him for free treatment and helped him. But yet that next moment, I lost him because I knew he was high again. I knew he was smoking. He started chanting and telling me things that were out of control. And I knew he had gone back. And I was always worried about how do we prepare to take action, we take action, and then we do maintenance. So even with families, just like you say, we have to suit up and show up, so too do families have to suit up and show up. They have to be prepared to do the work because nothing changes until everybody changes. So while you may not be on your path of recovery, whether you're AA, NA, Al-Anon, Prodependence, Codependence, whatever it is, it takes a lot of work. And be gentle with your soul because it takes 90 days to change your behavior. So if you're thinking of something, pick 3 goals today. What is it you want to change? And keep a journal and see what that is like and how you do it. And be sure to acknowledge your loved ones for being able to do what they are. I think it's really important, sorry about this, I got a frog, to be familiar with the Asam definition, American Society of Addiction Medicine, new definition. This comes in September 15th, 2019, and I'm so surprised how many people don't have this definition. Treatment centers, individuals, etc. But addiction is a treatable chronic medical disease, and really, I never in my whole life will call anybody an addict or alcoholic. Those are self-identifiers that are used within the hallowed walls of 12-step meetings, okay? What I will, because a person who experiences a substance use disorder or mental health disorder is so much more than their disorder. They're talented, they're husbands, they're wives, they're partners, they're brothers, they're sisters, they're artists, they're bakers, whatever. And so I want to be clear with you that while you're in the rooms, you call someone, that's how a self-identifier, that outside as a clinician or someone else, you're so much more. And people experience a substance use disorder. People experience a mental health disorder. So for ASAM, it's a treatable chronic medical disease. And what is by the far, I wish you were there, but if you can answer Tammy, what is the disease that is most resistant to change? I'm not going to give you, what is the disease? Is it addiction or is it something else? Is it a substance? What is the most resistant disease for people to change?
I would think it would be addiction because denial is the biggest component of that.
So you're wrong, but
I believe
let's see, you're wrong, but let's see if other people might come in, and I'm going to save that till last because you're going to be very surprised to learn what is the most resistant disease to change. And I'll give you a little hint. Motivational interviewing, which is Miller and Rolnick. Rolnick was a physician, Miller is a psychologist, was first tested, which is really how do you join up with challenging people, and it's really very helpful with families using these kinds of strategies, and also they first work with it. So I'm going to just leave it at that. So when we talk about treatment, I think we talk about it in terms of, people can achieve success in the rooms, which is what you're doing right now. They can also go in to treatment, and it can be anything from, and I do not consider medical detoxification treatment, and I think people are very mistaken about that. That's a place where you learn to titrate off of whatever mind-altering substances you're using in a safe, efficacious way. That is not treatment. But sometimes people are in outpatient, and we might think that when you're an outpatient, you're on a trail because you're out living in the world, or you're not. Other times we might be on the sidewalk where we're living in structured sober living, and we're going to outpatient 5 or 6 days a week. Other times we might be on the porch where we may be in residential treatment, but we're now branching out to the outside. And I always call the living room residential treatment, where here's an opportunity for a timeout, for us to learn new strategies, for our families even to have a timeout. And I really only like programs that have concurrent or parallel processes with families. And I do a lot of consulting. But today I want to invite all of you into recovery, because recovery is a process of change through which we improve our health and wellness. We live a dedicated, self-directed life. We're able to take direction, and we strive to reach our full potential or rewrite our story, because every one of us has a story about what we were doing. And I invite you to explore your family of origin. One of the things I don't have time for today, but you're more than welcome to visit my website or slideshow, since I'm really pretty famous on doing family mapping and taking a look and seeing where the good and the bad and the ugly, or the good and the strength and the resiliency is within your family. Because every one of us carries a history. If I just thought about myself, my poor father had a big blue glint in his eye, and I really did love him, but he was really tormented by mental health and by substance misuse. And unfortunately, at my ripe old age of 7, he followed in the footsteps of his parents and killed himself. I didn't learn until much later that they had also done that. And I'm thinking, what are the demons? And then I think about my mom. My mom was absolutely beautiful. Think about Cher and creating dresses before Cher was Cher. But yet she lived in a house beset with mental health and substance abuse. And her father died at a young age. And her mother in those days was manic depressive. And she had to be the caretaker. And when my father died, they blamed her. How could they have blamed her? And I was just this little, and think about, and I now, as an adult, I understood why she had to numb out. I don't know, I wouldn't have done that to find that compassion. But every one of us has a family of origin. And in that, there were great strengths. There was artistic strength. There was legal strength that came from, and there was this desire to change and sometimes to make mistakes. So while in Love One, if I was talking to families, you know that if you've ever been in treatment, you may complain, right? I don't like the food. Oh my God, they make me follow rules. I really don't want this. And I've had, loved ones call up their families and they say, I don't even like this. They made me make a sandwich. Really? I have to make my own sandwich? They made me make my own bed. I had a mother just scream at me one time. But the other thing is that you might feel guilt or shame or embarrassment because somehow or other you thought you weren't good enough because you violated your value standards. And by the way, families have the same guilt. If only I would have done it. If only I didn't look the other way. I recently worked with a wonderful family whose daughter was admitted 3 times at a young age for pancreatitis. 3 times the doctor said she needed treatment. And it wasn't until the 4th time that they actually could see. And those family are ridden with, how come I didn't see? How come I didn't act? But while you're in treatment, you may minimize issues. And that's why it's so good to have triangulation. And family and friends, oh God, they could be pains in the ass, right? They could feel anxious or resentful. they could desire to bail things out. I'm used to bailing you out. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Well, we've got to give them their superwoman, superman cape back, because the one way we learn is to experience the consequences of our behavior. Because there's always something grateful that comes from thinking outside the box, and it may be the family says, oh, they're off on vacation, when they're in treatment because they want to look good. But everybody knows. It's like the emperor's new clothes. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody knows who's walking around. And they might feel guilty or shame. So getting a family member to go to bridge them is really an art form, and allowing them the opportunity to grieve that which they think they lost, and to also allow them to make amends to themselves and to their loved one is really important. So for me, recovery means lifetime growth. It means development of new problem solving skills and strategies, one step forward, one step backward, responding and not reacting. Whoa, what a hard lesson that is for families to do. And for me, easy and even for someone in recovery. I want it now. But if I can say, hey, you know what? Plato said thoughtful consideration and wise deliberation. So I'm just going to stop and think a minute. I'll get back to you. I don't like the word boundaries as much as I don't like the word codependence. I like Rob's term, prodependence. I like compassionate directness. And when I work with people, I say, look, you have to look in the mirror and you have to make a decision about what is okay and what is not okay for you. I can give you 1,000 suggestions, but you have to be able to live with it. And I also invite everybody to take care of themselves physically, emotionally, and consistent with their values, or spiritually, at least do 9 different things each week. And then the new book I have coming out, I think the working title is Addiction in the Family. I don't know, the publisher's still telling me what the title is, but they'll be really outlined to help you be able to do that. So when we talk about recovery, this is not mine. NIDA, the National Institute of Drug Abuse, talks about 8 principles of recovery. And I'm sure all of you are well versed. Abstinence, but that's absence from all mind-altering substances. That is not abstinence in case you need certain medication. And I want to clarify that, because some people need medication, and that is different. Peer support, thank God for the Zoom in the rooms. That's all I can say. Without that, I don't know where we'd be. Meditation. I love to offer my family's meditation, and certain things I like. I love Headspace, I like Calm, and I love Deepak Chopra's 21 Days of Abundance. It's just mind-boggling. You have your own ritual. We do the same thing over and over again. Those of you in the rooms, you know what meetings you're going to go to, when you're going to go to, how to do it. Our good nutrition, professional services. I think it's a gift to see a professional. Make no mistake about it, and connection. Because addiction is a disease of isolation. It is the disease of, and recovery is a disease, is connection. When we talk about the nitty-gritty of recovery, one of the things we try and do is hit pause, right? Before we make a response, just delay 15 minutes, okay? I'll think about it. You need to have an escape route or a parachute ready when things don't work out. You need to have a strategic plan, and you don't need to be distracted. And so it's really, really important for you to think about how I can delay. Because in the other world, and families are just equally as guilty, so I'm not saying that. We want everything now. We want it all fixed now. We want it done now. When we talk about recovery, we mean some kind of emotional stability, new skills and strategies. Hey, I'm doing something different. I'm listening differently. I'm responding differently. If you respond with non-judgmental terms, like, I love you and I care about you. And yesterday, when you did A, B, C, D, and E, I felt baffled and confused. Most families only know 4 emotions: mad, sad, well, not even that, mad, sad, and glad. But there's a cornucopia of feelings that when I work with families, I teach them because they don't even know that they existed. If you're in treatment, you participate in the clinical offerings. That's the rule. You have a sponsor if you like 12-step, or if you like some other group, you have some other way of doing it. You're able to address legal and financial issues. If you're a member of GA, part of the 12 steps is financial healthiness, handling confrontations, planning, what do I do in following rules. I think it's really important if you do download, and I don't have a lot of time right now to continue with this, but there are recovery issues. And there's recovery issues that are early, middle, and advanced. And when we think about early recovery, I don't know how to break it to, and I break it to everybody very gently. Early recovery, I mean 1 to 5 years. Really? You really mean that? Yes, I really mean it. But I also mean this for families, because they're, the disadvantage a family has, unless they're doing a family intensive, or they're working intently with somebody, or there's a treatment center, they don't have the benefit of treatment full time. And I always thought that should happen, because that was the gift I sort of got. But there can be this sort of all or none thinking, black and white thinking, and that's what we're used to. And, like sort of low self-esteem or grieving, just what did I lose? There was a famous book a long time ago in the 60s, which I thought was just still brilliant. I think it's still brilliant today. It was Mother, I Have Something to Tell You. And a lot of times parents grieve what they thought might happen didn't happen. And they need to be able to embrace who you are today, who you are and the beautiful being you are, or who they are today. Maybe they thought they would be something else, and life took so many twists and turns. I mean, I've had 5 sudden deaths in my life. I am always grateful to the University of San Diego, because I wasn't a good fit there. I really wasn't. I have to learn to think outside the box. I had always done interventions on the side, and I learned from the granddaddy on the mall, or his best friend, a man named Frank Picard, who no one seems to honor and pays homage to, but he wrote a book called Family Intervention and was best friends with Vern Johnson. And if it hadn't been for the fact that my ego got in the way, I wanted to get this great big $1 million plus grant, which I got, went to a university where I didn't really fit in and sort of was going to like die there. And I wasn't, and there was a wonderful gentleman, because I had done interventions on the side, that was 90 years old, that wanted to intervene on his 63-year-old daughter. And I was in my 40s, or 50s probably at the time. And I said, you know what? I love doing this. I've been doing this on the side for years. I'm going to leave this toxic environment before they're going to invite me to leave anyhow. They're going to invite me to leave. And I'm going to just create a brochure. And it was called AAI, All About Interventions, because I thought I'd be first in the yellow pages. For those of you that are young, don't even know what the yellow pages are. I'm so grateful for that, because I wouldn't be here with you today. And I wouldn't have the ability to speak all over the world today, or to help families all over the world. So you have to realize that thinking outside the box or grieving not what you did, it was hard. But then also being over responsible, identifying boundaries. Well, like, parents are great at telling you what to do, how to do it, right? But you've got to develop it, and just letting go and allowing it, and just taking a look at what they might have done. That I give all families no fault insurance. You did the best you could do with the resources you have, and now maybe we're going to learn to do something a little bit differently. But you're going to choose, because I only invite people to change, and it's up to them. So when we think about trust in early recovery, it's really hard to trust, right? I'm not too sure. Are you going to show up? Are you going to really do things? Giving and receiving love, I'm not too sure how to do that, because I may have gotten love in all the wrong places. I may have woken up in all the wrong bedrooms. And feelings, just being able to identify my feelings. And I think that as families, we had high tolerance for inappropriate behaviors. So our band now all of a sudden, hey, what is inappropriate behavior? And these are some things, and I know that some of you are already up there where you trust and you're healthy and you refine the higher self. But I believe that's the trajectory we're on. But I think we also have to have compassion for people new in recovery, families and loved ones, because they both are struggling. And I know sometimes my colleagues are so mad at the sort of circus that comes with the client, and they call me the family whisperer, but those families are in pain. They may have done just tremendously awful things. But they have to learn to change too, because nothing will change till we all change. Real quickly, families and friends learn that addiction is a disease. Oh, by the way, the most resistant disease to change is diabetes. Oh, people diabetes. And that's where Miller and Roenick really developed with in prisons, with heart disease, and with diabetes, is where motivational interviewing was born. We have to learn to differentiate between the person and the disorder, because the person is so much more than their disorder. I invite you, if you've never read The Tennis Partner by Bergassi, who's a Stanford doctor, I think go to page 129 or Google an article I wrote called Words, Words, Words. I have millions of blogs, and he talks about David, and David's the protagonist in the story, and David is this, what I like him for a doctor. He is really good looking, he is super smart, he's got an Australian accent, and he is older than the rest of the residents because he we went to treatment once, and he's now back in the game. And when he grew up, David's father told him he was no good. He wasn't smart enough. He'd never become a tennis pro. But David he was so much more than his sexual addiction, than his substance use disorder, and than his anxiety and depression. And Bergassi does the most beautiful job in the world differentiating between the person and the disorder. And I was speaking, crazily enough, at a medical conference in West Virginia, and I always thought The Tennis Partner was a fiction book. And after I got done speaking, a wonderful, wonderful physician came up to me, and he said, I was a year behind David. I was also Dr. Bergassi's resident. My heart just stopped with that God shot. But you want to learn to build a recovery network. I'm sorry if you can't see my slide. The next slide is sort of fun, because you're going to see me after the last time I hit a bow and arrow was when I was 16 years old, and my father had died, or I was at camp. And he died when I was 7, and I loved camp, and I learned how to shoot a bow and arrow, and I hadn't picked one up or had that play till about 3 years ago when I was in Bhutan. And in the middle of Bhutan, there was this archery field. And I said, I can do that. I can do that. And I'm going so childlike and so playful. And I picked up a bow and arrow. I remember that you're supposed to do it like you're brushing your teeth. I made a frickin' bullseye. I had no idea, but the idea is to play. Do something for play, and to remember the 7 C's, which are not my original ones, but that for those of you who are families or grew up in alcoholic families, that you did not cause the disease. I can't cure it either. I just can't. I can't control another person, but what I can do is I can take care of myself. I can communicate my feelings. I can make healthy choices. I celebrate myself, and I think I would add to it, I can communicate, I can have confidence, and I can have clarity. And that really is what, when you stop and think about it, is what, as a family, you can't live with them, you can't live without them, but what can you have them do? And for those of you that are in, you can teach them, or you can stay away from them, you can detach. If it's not healthy. Sometimes it's not. I always give family members 5 magic words designed to drive everybody angry, make them a little bit upset, but they're complete sentences. Yes, yes, I'm only going to love you in health and wellness. And by the way, my yeses can mean no's. No, I'm not going to give you any more money. Oh, yesterday when this young man called me and all of a sudden I thought I was going to help him get to treatment, and then he started, I don't know, chanting or doing something else. I said, really? I can't talk to you right now until you choose health and wellness. There's a path for you. So put the meth stick away and let's get it together. You know, and whatever sometimes people don't like is a harsh word, but whatever puts it, what the idea of all those magic words is they take it and put the responsibility back where it belongs, on the other person. And sometimes we just have to take responsibility for our actions and what we did, and not try and project out or blame others. And if we live in complaint, there's a wonderful triangle. It's called the Cartman Triangle, where we're martyr, victim, and perpetrator. And I have a great slideshare about it. So if you want me to come back and talk about it, I'm happy to do that. But oftentimes we go around this triangle and we play martyr, victim, perpetrator. Poor little me, look what I've done for you. I'm a victim, and then I'm going to try and bail you out, so I'm a martyr. And then who the hell do you think you are? I'm going to yell at you, and I now become a perpetrator. And recovery is really breaking out of this triangle and really taking responsibility for your own behaviors and allowing someone else the experience of taking responsibility for their own. I like to think that we see, again, gratefulness, to see the world with a grateful eye. And it requires showing up, being of service, making amends. We can't get coffee anymore, but we can certainly show up in the rooms. We can host a meeting. We can be part of a meeting. We can be co-host of a meeting. We can still be of service. You still can sponsor. You still can ask for sponsors. And you need to be grateful to people, not just things. I like when you think outside the box. I told you one time I did, but allowing your loved one for allowing you to explore your own behaviors, your boss for firing you. Maybe that's just the door that needed to be open. Your boyfriend, girlfriend, or partner for ending their relationship. Even your interventionist. Oh my God, I said that word because I have been one of the few licensed clinicians in the country that does that, for going to treatment, that you don't hate them. But I hope they invited you to treatment, because I'm not like the cops and robbers. But how can you think outside the box? Okay? How do you think outside the box? Is there anyone, I hope you're able to put something up there and let me know what you've done to think outside the box. Because something happens where we didn't expect it, and there's another thing that will happen. That does it. I mean, no more would I have thought I would be here on this platform today if it weren't for COVID-19. And what a blessing. And I know I'm not in love with COVID-19. Let me be clear on that. But, you know, again, I think that processing life through a grateful lens, if you look at the slide, this is Gurumpachi, okay? Gurumpachi was when I was able to go to Bhutan, and we had a wonderful guide there. So Gurumpachi is one of the Buddhas, thousands and thousands of years old. But I thought, like, how brilliant Gurumpachi was, because he's really like a way of looking at ego run wild and making amends. So if you went around this circle, because Gurumpachi has a circle, and if you fall prey or you let your ego run riot, it could be lust, it could be money, it could be avarice, it could be lying, it could be cheating. But in order to get to transcendence, or for us to rewrite our story, you go through these pathways. And if you get stuck, then you get stuck. And that's usually when you're taken out, or you harm yourself, or you harm another person. So when we process life through a grateful lens, it doesn't mean denying our negativity. It doesn't even mean shaming our story, because you need to be able to walk into your story. And each one of us has a story, and I'll argue that we have confabulations. Oh, I forgot to tell you, in 7 seconds, you decided if you liked me or not today, if you even wanted to listen to me. And you might have had a whole story about who is this lady and what's her accent. Oh, it's from Pittsburgh, not New York, Pennsylvania. And you know, who is she? What'd she do? But you had a story, and we make up stories about other people. And you have a story about yourself, a confabulation. But it means that you're open to learning about someone else. It means that you realize that you have the power to transform an obstacle into an opportunity. And sometimes you wonder, really, does God really give us so much that we can handle? And it oftentimes means reframing a loss to a potential gain and recasting negativity into positive channels. So with all those many sudden deaths I had, my third child died, the only son of Sid's death. And that's not a fun one, because the officers stand guard. They think you have foul play. You can't go into the room. But then I also wonder, well, did he pave the way for my fourth child to have the courage to do that? You know, because would I have ever had my beautiful fourth child? I don't know. But I do know that was that painful. Do you have to grieve your losses? Is recovery painful? Yes, you have to grieve that which you lost. You have to grieve that which you didn't do. But you also have to understand that there's this wonderful world out there that you can help create, and that you have that opportunity and that choice. And that is so important. And so I want you all to take care of yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, or consistent with one's values. If I had a board, I would just have you go Sunday, Monday through Wednesday, and put in 3 things physically, 3 things emotionally, and if you don't like the word spiritually, consistent with your values, that you do. That's 9 things to do each week. It's going to fill your soul up, I promise. And that's what I make my families do. And what I really want you to do is choose your thoughts. I want you to try and eat well. And it's always, I don't want the Zoom 15 for all of you. I want you to be able to find a safe space if you're at home and you've got lots of kids and you're working from home and you don't know what to do. I know that's really tough. I know that tempers can even floor. To see whether you can go outside at all, mask, because that's what we have to do. To take time, just 15 minutes a day, to contemplate or meditate, to write in your journals, to breathe, to take a breath, to let go, and to sleep, and to discover joy. I'd love for you to discover joy. I welcome you to reach out to me. I am really easy to reach because I answer my own phone. Isn't that funny? 619-507-1699. I always say for a good time. I happen to be a writer, and so I send out blogs all the time. They get replayed on Thrive Global sometimes, and also in London. But you can just sign up for them on my website. Being an old professor, my website's very large and has lots of information on mental health, on substance use disorders, on intervention, on aging, on failure to launch, et cetera, et cetera. And I just invite you because I'd love to meet you and I'd love to learn all about you. So I think I made it in the
You did great, but you have questions, so let's get
good.
I took notes. That's what I was doing. I was like, so
Okay.
but we've got people that are asking. So this one blew me away. It's like, I'd like to ask Because I'm a healthcare provider, and Dr. Stanger just stated addiction is a disease, yet in the medical field and colleagues around me as an addicted nurse state, addiction is a choice, not a disease. You made the choice to use. In the recovery rooms, I'm accepted, but the outside world is a different reflection of forgiveness. I wrote back, I said, wow, I'm shocked. Asam clearly states that it's the disease, and then you stated that. But this person responded, yes, I hear that all the time in recovery in my community here. But my wife is also a nurse who believes it is not a disease, and the only place I feel safe is here.
So I would have to say, I want to invite you to do some searching. Like earlier this year, before COVID hit, I spoke in West Virginia, a large addiction conference that I just shared. The last conference I spoke at was in Washington for Providence Medical Center. I think that you're right. There are going to be many people that say, oh my, this is your choice. I think you have to remind them and just share with them that there are addiction medicine specialists. But I don't know of any city or state that doesn't have groups of physicians, groups of nurses that honor 12-step meetings. I know in Southern California, there are a lot of ones and working together. So I would guess that those who are throwing stones, when you have two fingers pointing out, there's two fingers pointing out, and, happy for you to reach out, and I can connect you with some of my colleagues and everything. But I think that, you're being able to, if you're comfortable and you only want to do it comfortably, say, hey, you know what, here's the definition. I have a disease. There is something even called post-acute withdrawal syndrome, which is medically driven, that 3-4 months after you're in, you can have cravings. And so I think that's just a matter of us educating and people being ignorant or being afraid. Therefore, the grace of God goes me. Because when you take a look at families across the country, 1 out of every 3 families has a history of addiction. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of those people throwing stones aren't worried about a loved one.
And I think it's a choice after I have the tools for recovery. When I was in my active addiction, I did not have a choice. Once I was in recovery, like if I chose now to go back out, to me, that's a choice. But
it's similar to diabetics. Have you
yes.
ever been with a diabetic who decides not to test their insulin, that you have to actually smack or call because they're passing out? I had a wonderful cousin who was an allergist, and we'd have to hit him sometimes because he did not manage, he was not med compliant. So I think the issue is, am I compliant with what the prescription is? If I'm not compliant with what the prescription is, then I begin to do it. But you have to remember that relapse occurs long before the first drug or drink is ever taken.
100% agree. Okay, next question. The speakers are great. I have a question for Dr. Louise. How do you deal with verbally abusive and intrusive family in your own recovery as a grown-up? Is the solution cutting them out of your life? What are your thoughts?
So if they're abusive, you have to make a decision. You can say, hey, I love you and care about you. Yesterday when you said blah, 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 I felt belittled and everything. Or you can say, you can be very direct. I worked with one family, and the mom was active in her addiction, and she used to, like, when she was drinking, she called someone every name under the sun. And so you could hear it in her verse. And then on the receiving end, they said, look, I love you and I care about you. When you're verbally abusive to me, I need to withdraw myself and hang up, because you're setting that boundary that you love and care about them, but you're not going to tolerate that behavior. If you stay in the conversation, then you become part of the problem, not part of the solution.
So this next question, and I was going to type an answer, and I thought I would like you to share your resources. It says, is this podcast or YouTube? So this will be recorded and on YouTube for In the Rooms. But Dr. Louise, this person says, I'm having trouble with self-loathing, esteem, bad marriage with brother, sister now for years. Will you please share your website resources so that it's on the recording?
Yes, so you can reach me by going to www.allaboutinterventions.com. You can Google my name, Louise Stanger, Louisestanger. So many people call me Stranger, but I'm only Stanger. Or you can give me a call at 619-507-1699. And there are a host of resources, and you can also talk to me in my chat box. Reach out to me.
And Dr. Louise did a podcast with Dr. Rob Weiss, who's on this platform on Friday nights, and that you can find on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, along with a lot of other resources as well. So, okay, the next question. You mentioned not saying or associating with the term, hi, I am an example, Michelle, I am an alcoholic. Should we drop the alcoholic term in our meetings and replace them? That I'm in a recovery of alcohol.
No, that's not what I said. So let me be clear. What I said was saying, hi, I'm alcoholic, addict, Al-Anon, is a self-identifier in the meeting. As a professional, I'm very clear that I deal with people who experience a substance use disorder, a mental health disorder, a process disorder, etc. Because what I want the world to know is that you're so much more than that. Very, very different in the rooms. Yes, hi, that is yourself. That's a self-identifier that helps you deal with that part of yourself. There is an article I wrote, which I would invite you to Google. It's called Words, Words, Words. And it talks about what the former Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare under Obama suggested as a correct protocol for talking about things to destigmatize. And sometimes the word addict carries with it a stigma. But if I say I'm working with people who experience substance use disorder, it more or less aligns a little bit better with the disease. Yeah, I hope that's clear.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I do know in the professional world, substance use disorder, but I've never said, hi, I'm Tammy and I have a substance use disorder. I say I'm an alcoholic.
But
And
you would
for
say
me,
that in the meeting. But
right,
but
exactly.
if you met someone and you wanted to share, you could do that and say,
Yes.
I experience anxiety. Look, people are running around all day long saying I experience anxiety and depression. And I also have had difficulty with substances. Another way of saying it.
Yes. Yes.
Not
But
minimizing at all.
no.
And I'm proud to say I'm in recovery. I'm
Yeah.
proud of that.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was a hard one. And it was such an opportunity because I thought I was just nuts, like it could be, why would I keep doing these crazy things? And so that label, people go, oh, it's pathologizing, it's labeling. I was like, that label helped me realize that there was hope. So it
There
worked for
is
me.
hope.
Yeah.
And, I have another wonderful article. If there's always hope, there's always a solution.
Oh, here's another question. How do you recommend making amends to family members when both parties contributed to a conflict and played a part in the fallout?
Not too sure I understand the question. How do I make amends to
Family members when both parties contributed to a conflict and played a part of the fallout?
So you can only take responsibility for yourself, and you can say, hey, Sally, Sue, George, John, I've been thinking a lot. A mother once did this yesterday. I want to make amends to you, Sally. I realized that for so many years I looked the other way, and I just let you do whatever you wanted to do. And I didn't see all the warning signs, and I didn't even hear when the doctor told me 3 times that your pancreas was shot. I didn't put together pancreas being shot meant alcohol dependency, and maybe I should do something about this. Or I didn't put together when my purse was missing money. I thought it was my purse, and I thought I spent it. And I want to apologize to you because I think if I had been more aware, I could have done something differently.
I love what you're sharing, and you're not like waiting for them. And now it's your turn. It's like, I'm just sharing my part, taking
And it's really,
responsibility from my side.
Yeah, and then you can't control what another person's going to do. I mean, you can make amends and the person will never talk to you again. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. But if you're working a program, it's really good to work that out first with your sponsor and then decide, when to do it. If you're working with a family counselor, it's really good to have them help structure that. But the 7 C's are, I can't control another person. I mean, I, as much as I'd love to, and I probably would still love to, I just cannot.
Well, that is so true. I say the Serenity Prayer like so many times, and it's
Yeah,
just a good reminder that all I
yeah,
can do is control my actions and
yeah.
reactions. Um,
And
so
by the way, I love the Serenity Prayer. And a little footnote is, do you know who started the Serenity Prayer?
I used to, but remind us.
So it was started by a German philosopher or minister, and his name was Fritz Reinhold. And it went around the country talking to YMCAs. And then there was a theoretician, Fritz Perls, who founded Gestalt, who thought that was a great idea. And somehow or other, it wandered into 12-step. But what I always tell families, because they say, oh, that's Serenity Prayer, that's just 12-step. I go, no, go look it up. Go figure it out. But God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's such a great.
Yes, and I have to, as you started off, take the pause, like slow everything down, take the pause, and what can I control? Not anything else, just my actions and reactions. So we're going to close because I want everybody to go off to their 12-step meetings. Thank you so much. Good luck with the
Oh,
move. We will have you back. I love the Cartman drama triangle, and like it's really good to know that you can get off the triangle and you can do things
yeah.
differently. So we will invite you back for another time.
Well, thank you so much. Many blessings to all of you. If you have more questions, you know how to get a hold of me, and keep doing what you're doing. Keep inspiring change. And as my book says, keep following up.
And come back for Troy Love. So in an hour, Troy Love will be here. His presentation is very useful on attachment wounds and things like that too. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.